Disclaimer: the following presentation is intended solely for educational, informational, and entertainment purposes and does not constitute formal business, financial, legal, tax, or human resources advice. The case studies, historical trends, and potential outcomes discussed regarding email marketing, digital infrastructure, and hiring practices are based on aggregate industry observations and are not a substitute for tailored professional consultation. Every commercial enterprise possesses unique operational frameworks, target demographics, and financial constraints. Hiring decisions, data management practices, and marketing strategies carry inherent operational risks, and past industry performance does not dictate future commercial results. Furthermore, discussions regarding email deliverability and marketing compliance touch upon complex regulatory environments, including but not limited to the Controlling the Assault of Non-Solicited Pornography and Marketing Act in the United States, as well as international data protection frameworks. Viewers are strongly advised to conduct their own thorough due diligence and consult with certified business advisors, specialized legal counsel, or financial professionals before executing any hiring contracts, allocating marketing budgets, restructuring internal teams, or implementing new data collection methodologies. We need to talk about the most dangerous misconception currently suffocating the American digital business landscape. Right now, thousands of founders, chief marketing officers, and business operators are pouring tens of thousands of dollars every single month into algorithmic advertising platforms, influencer partnerships, and aggressive search engine optimization campaigns. They are operating under the deeply flawed assumption that perpetually acquiring new, top-of-funnel traffic is the ultimate and only solution to their revenue plateaus. Yet, historical trends and extensive industry data reveal a terrifying reality for companies operating with this blind spot. When the algorithms shift, when privacy policies update, or when advertising costs spike, businesses built entirely on rented digital land face catastrophic, overnight revenue contraction. Let us examine a highly representative case study to understand the magnitude of this vulnerability. Consider a rapidly scaling direct-to-consumer apparel brand based out of Austin, Texas. 3 years ago, they were consistently generating nearly $500,000 a month in gross revenue, driven almost exclusively by highly optimized, heavily funded social media advertising. Internally, they felt completely invincible. Their customer acquisition cost was exceptionally low, and their return on ad spend was breaking industry records. However, they were ignoring their most valuable asset. They had passively accumulated a customer database of over 150,000 email addresses, but because they had never treated that list as a strategic, revenue-generating ecosystem, it sat dormant. Then, major data privacy changes swept through the mobile technology sector, fundamentally altering how user data could be tracked across applications. The brand's ability to precisely target consumers vanished. Within a single financial quarter, their advertising costs quadrupled, and their profit margins evaporated. In a desperate attempt to salvage their quarter, the leadership team instructed a junior marketing assistant to start blasting heavy promotional discounts to their massive, neglected email list. The results were disastrous. Because they had no established sender reputation, no segmenting strategy, and no understanding of email deliverability protocols, their messages were immediately flagged. They hit dormant spam traps, triggered a massive wave of subscriber complaints, and their core sending domain was blacklisted by major inbox providers. They had the audience, but they lacked the architect, and it nearly cost them their entire business. Now, contrast that devastating scenario with a competitor in the exact same consumer sector who understood the assignment. This second company did not chase every fleeting algorithmic trend. Instead, they recognized that email was own real estate. They allocated capital to hire a seasoned, dedicated email marketing manager. It is crucial to understand that this hire was not simply a junior copywriter tasked with drafting clever subject lines, nor were they a graphic designer formatting pretty newsletters. This individual was a highly technical systems architect and a behavioral psychologist rolled into one. This manager immediately audited the company's data collection methods. They implemented rigorous segmentation protocols based on zero-party data and predictive purchasing behavior. They mapped out incredibly complex, highly personalized automated workflows. If a customer browsed a specific category of technical outerwear but did not purchase, they did not receive a generic 10% off coupon. They received a targeted educational sequence about the proprietary waterproofing technology used in that exact garment. When the exact same industry-wide data privacy shifts crippled their competitors, this company's revenue barely fluctuated. Why? because historically, they had engineered a system where over 40% of their total gross revenue was being generated on absolute autopilot through strategically managed, owned email channels. The shocking statistic that most operators fail to internalize is that, despite the proliferation of new communication channels, email marketing consistently demonstrates potential outcomes of up to a 36-to-1 return on investment across various sectors. Yet, when business owners finally recognize this massive disparity and decide to capitalize on it, they almost always make a fatal operational error. They hire the wrong profile, assign the wrong key performance indicators, and end up actively damaging their brand equity. There is a silent killer lurking in your current customer database right now. It is a highly specific engagement metric that most major email service providers deliberately obscure deep within their reporting dashboards. If you do not know how to identify and monitor this specific metric, your broadcast emails are almost certainly being routed directly to the promotional tab or worse, silently dropped into the spam folder without your knowledge. I am going to reveal exactly what that obscured metric is, why it dictates your entire inbox placement strategy, and exactly how to optimize it later in this masterclass. But before you can fix your technical deliverability, you must deeply understand the human and systemic architecture behind the channel. This brings us directly to the core objective of today's deep dive. If you are operating a business in the United States today, whether you are a software-as-a-service founder navigating long enterprise sales cycles, a direct-to-consumer brand owner fighting for margin, or managing a high-ticket service firm, you are actively leaving substantial high-margin revenue on the table if you do not understand the rigorous mechanics of elite email marketing management. In this comprehensive, uncompromising masterclass, we are going to completely deconstruct the actual day-to-day role of an email marketing manager. We are going to tear down the exact daily, weekly, and monthly operational workflows of top-tier professionals operating in this specialized space. We will move far beyond the superficial, entry-level advice of simply split-testing subject lines or optimizing call-to-action button colors. We are going to examine the critical technical infrastructure required for success, from configuring complex sender authentication protocols like domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance, to engineering advanced segmentation strategies that dynamically react to real-time customer behavior. More importantly, this breakdown is explicitly designed to solve a massive strategic and financial headache for you and your leadership team. By the end of this presentation, you will possess the clarity to know exactly whether your specific business model currently requires a full-time, in-house email marketing manager, or if your capital would be far better allocated toward a fractional consultant or a specialized retention agency. I am going to provide you with the exact historical frameworks used by top recruiters to evaluate candidates, the specific high-pressure interview questions that separate true strategic operators from basic tactical order takers, and the precise financial models you should utilize to project the potential return on investment of bringing this function into your organization. You will learn how to systematically audit your own existing email infrastructure, identify the hidden revenue leaks in your current automated sequences, and build a sustainable owned audience ecosystem that acts as an impenetrable fortress against constantly rising paid advertising costs. We are going fundamentally deep into the mechanics of customer retention, lifetime value maximization, and strategic digital communication. Prepare to fundamentally change how you view your most valuable business asset. The daily reality of an elite email marketing manager is so far removed from simply typing up weekly newsletters that the job title itself is almost a misnomer. In the year 2026, this role functions much closer to a behavioral data scientist mixed with a systems architect. To truly understand the gravity of their daily operations, we must dissect the shift from batch and blast broadcasting to complex behavioral automation. Most novice business owners view an email list as a megaphone. They have a promotion, they draft a single message, and they shout it at every single person in their database simultaneously. This antiquated approach is precisely why so many brands suffer from abysmal conversion rates and catastrophic deliverability issues. An experienced email marketing manager views the database not as an audience to be shouted at, but as a digital central nervous system that must respond dynamically to the specific actions of every individual user. Let us examine a highly specific case study of a direct-to-consumer performance footwear brand based in Chicago. The founder, let us call him Michael, was spending roughly $80,000 a month on social media advertising to drive top-of-funnel traffic. The unit economics were starting to compress as customer acquisition costs reached historical highs across the industry. Michael hired a dedicated in-house email marketing manager named Elena to stabilize the back-end revenue. Elena did not immediately sit down to write promotional copy. Her entire first month was dedicated solely to building the automated flow architecture. The first system Elena engineered was the Welcome series, but she did not build a generic sequence that merely offered a 10% discount. She implemented a dynamic, multi-branch conditional logic flow based entirely on zero-party data, collected at the exact moment of opt-in. When a new visitor entered their email address on the website, they were asked one simple, low-friction question about their primary fitness goal, whether it was marathon training, casual running, or weightlifting. Based on that single data point, the automated infrastructure routed the new subscriber down one of 3 entirely different educational pathways. If the user selected marathon training, they did not receive generic shoe advertisements. Over the next 14 days, they received highly specific, value-driven content regarding long-distance recovery protocols, hydration strategies, and case studies of professional athletes using the brand proprietary foam technology. Only after establishing massive foundational trust did the automated sequence present a tailored product recommendation. This is not blast marketing. This is precision behavioral targeting based on the historical trends of consumer psychology. This specific flow alone increased the new subscriber conversion rate by over 200% compared to the brand's previous generic welcome email. Next, Elena completely overhauled the entire browse and cart abandonment infrastructure. A junior marketer might set up a single automated message stating that you left something behind. An elite email marketing manager builds a cascading multi-touchpoint sequence designed to systematically dismantle purchasing objections. For the cart abandonment sequence, Elena built a 4-part flow. The first communication, triggered exactly 45 minutes after abandonment, was purely customer service oriented. It did not push for the sale. It simply asked if the user experienced a technical glitch during the checkout process and provided a direct line to the support team. The second communication, deployed 24 hours later, dynamically populated user-generated content and verified 5-star reviews of the exact specific shoe model the user had left in their cart, leveraging intense social proof. The third communication, sent 48 hours later, offered a uniquely generated single-use discount code that automatically expired in exactly 12 hours, engineering legitimate, undeniable urgency. The final communication was a plain text, heavily personalized message appearing to come directly from the founder, asking if they had any final questions about sizing. This hyper-optimized sequence recovered nearly 18% of all abandoned carts, creating a massive, predictable influx of highly profitable revenue that required zero additional advertising capital to acquire. However, building these complex automated systems is only the foundational layer of the role. The day-to-day operational reality requires relentless, systematic data analysis and split testing. Every single morning, a top-tier email marketing manager logs into their analytics dashboard to perform a diagnostic check on the health of these automated flows. They are not just passively observing open rates. They are rigorously A/B testing the timing delays between automated messages, analyzing the hierarchy of the internal copywriting, and scrutinizing the specific color and placement of the call to action buttons. For example, Elena noticed through continuous testing that plain text emails containing zero heavy image formatting were generating a historically higher click-through rate for their older male demographic. She immediately segmented the master list by age demographic and tailored the visual design of the outbound broadcast campaigns accordingly, maximizing engagement for that specific cohort. This level of granular segmentation separates the true professionals from the amateurs. An amateur treats all subscribers as equals. A professional segments the database based on recency of purchase, frequency of engagement, and predicted lifetime value. Elena engineered an exclusive VIP segment for customers who had purchased from the brand more than 4 times in the preceding 12 months. These high-value individuals were completely removed from standard promotional discounting. Instead, they received early, gated access to limited edition colorways and exclusive invitations to virtual fitness challenges hosted by the brand. By actively treating the best customers differently, Elena cultivated intense, fierce brand loyalty and maximized their total lifetime value, a strategy thoroughly proven by numerous historical case studies to be exponentially more profitable than constantly burning capital to chase transient new buyers. Furthermore, an elite email marketing manager serves as the primary guardian of the brand sender reputation and domain health. In the current digital landscape, internet service providers have deployed incredibly strict, machine learning-driven spam filtering algorithms. If a company repeatedly sends broadcast messages to individuals who never open or interact with them, The algorithms will penalize the sender domain and start routing all of that company emails directly into the spam folder, even for the customers who actively want to receive them. To aggressively combat this, Elena implemented a strict sunset unengaged protocol. If a subscriber failed to open or click a single email for 90 consecutive days, the system automatically transitioned them into a highly specific re-engagement sequence. If they remained unresponsive, they were actively suppressed and permanently removed from the active sending list. To an untrained operator, intentionally deleting thousands of contacts feels like destroying company value. To a seasoned email manager, it is a mandatory, non-negotiable pruning process required to protect the deliverability and financial viability of the entire digital infrastructure. Imagine if your current enterprise had a dedicated, highly technical resource perfectly calibrating every single digital interaction a potential customer experiences with your brand after they submit their contact information. Imagine the absolute financial stability of knowing that 30 to 40% of your gross monthly revenue is secured through owned, automated channels that you completely control, entirely insulated from external algorithmic volatility. This is the exact potential outcome of placing a high-caliber email marketing manager at the helm of your retention strategy. However, there is a very dark side to this hiring equation. As the broader market realizes the immense, outsized value of this specific role, the talent pool has become completely flooded with dangerously underqualified freelancers and junior copywriters fraudulently claiming to be technical experts. If you hire the wrong individual, they will not just fail to generate a return on investment. They possess the direct capability to permanently burn your core sending domain to the ground, irreversibly alienate your customer base, and trigger catastrophic legal compliance violations regarding international data privacy regulations. You must know exactly how to test a candidate's technical depth before you grant them administrative access to your most valuable business asset. The absolute worst mistake a founder can make is asking a candidate to simply write a sample newsletter during the interview process. Instead, there is one highly specific, deeply technical situational question you must ask every single candidate, and if they cannot answer it flawlessly within 10 seconds, you must terminate the interview immediately. What is this single critical question, and how do you systematically spot a fake expert before they destroy your database? The single critical question you must ask every single candidate sitting across from you, or on that virtual interview screen is this. If our overall open rates suddenly drop by 40% overnight across all major inbox providers, but our sender volume has not changed, walk me through the exact technical diagnostic steps you will take in the first 60 minutes to identify the root cause. When you ask this question, you must pay intense attention to their immediate reaction. A fake expert, a junior copywriter masquerading as a technical manager, will immediately panic and pivot to superficial marketing tactics. They will suggest that the subject lines need to be punchier. They will recommend running an A/B test on the preview text. They will suggest offering a larger discount code to incentivize engagement. If you hear any of these responses, you must end the interview. They have just proven they do not understand the fundamental mechanics of deliverability. A sudden massive drop in open rates across the board is rarely a copywriting issue. It is almost always a catastrophic infrastructure failure, meaning your emails are no longer reaching the inbox at all and are being routed directly to the spam folder or blocked entirely at the server level. An elite email marketing manager will not even mention copywriting in their response. Instead, they will immediately outline a rigorous step-by-step technical diagnostic protocol. First, they will state that they would check Google Postmaster tools and Microsoft Smart Network data services to analyze the raw domain and IP reputation data. Second, they will verify that the core authentication records have not been accidentally altered or corrupted within the domain name system settings. They will specifically name the 3 pillars of email authentication. They will explain that they need to verify the sender policy framework, which acts as a public ledger telling receiving servers exactly which software platforms are legally authorized to send mail on behalf of your brand. They will check the domain key's identified mail, which attaches a complex cryptographic signature to every single outgoing message to prove it was not intercepted and altered by a malicious third party during transit. Most importantly, they will verify the domain-based message authentication, reporting, and conformance policy to see if receiving servers are actively rejecting your mail based on alignment failures. If a candidate cannot fluently discuss these protocols, they are fundamentally unqualified to manage a commercial database in the year 2026. Inbox providers have militarized their spam filtering algorithms, and without flawless technical infrastructure, your entire marketing budget is being incinerated. To understand the sheer financial destruction an unqualified hire can cause, consider a case study of a mid-market business-to-business software company based in Seattle, Washington. In early 2026, the founder, David, hired an enthusiastic but technically inexperienced individual to take over their email operations. The company was migrating their entire customer relationship management database from an outdated legacy platform to a modern, robust marketing automation tool. The new hire successfully imported a list of 200,000 highly targeted corporate leads and immediately scheduled a massive, plain-text promotional broadcast to announce a new software feature. This single action nearly bankrupted the company. The new hire completely bypassed the mandatory IP warm-up process. When you migrate to a new email service provider, you are assigned a new, dedicated Internet Protocol address. To major inbox providers like Gmail and Yahoo, a brand new IP address suddenly blasting out hundreds of thousands of messages looks exactly like the behavior of a hostile malicious actor or a compromised server. Because the new hire did not systematically and slowly increase the sending volume over a period of 30 days to establish algorithmic trust, the major inbox providers instantly blacklisted the company core sending domain. But the damage did not stop at the marketing department. Because the core root domain was blacklisted, every single one-to-one email sent by David's massive enterprise sales team suddenly started landing in the spam folders of their prospective clients. Invoices sent by the accounting department were blocked. Critical customer support replies vanished. By failing to understand infrastructure, the junior marketer completely severed the digital vocal cords of the entire organization, resulting in millions of dollars in stalled pipeline revenue. An elite email marketing manager prevents these catastrophes by treating domain reputation as the most critical asset in the company. This requires an obsessive, daily commitment to list hygiene and data scrubbing. Many business owners harbor a dangerous psychological attachment to the sheer size of their email list. They view the total subscriber count as a vanity metric. A true professional understands that a massive list of unengaged subscribers is not an asset. It is a massive ticking liability. Let us examine another historical trend through the lens of a highly successful dietary supplement brand operating out of Miami, Florida. The brand had aggressively accumulated a database of over 600,000 email addresses over 5 years. However, their inbox placement was deteriorating rapidly. They hired a senior email marketing manager who immediately executed a ruthless data audit. The manager discovered that over 300,000 of those email addresses had not opened a single communication in over 180 days. The founders wanted to keep emailing them, hoping they would eventually buy. The manager explained the mathematical reality of deliverability in 2026. When you continuously send messages to dead inboxes, the artificial intelligence governing the receiving servers categorizes your brand as a low-quality sender. This categorization actively drags down the deliverability for the subscribers who actually want to read your content. The manager implemented a highly aggressive sunset policy. They quarantined the 300,000 unengaged users and ran them through a final plain text re-engagement sequence. Those who did not click a link within 7 days were permanently suppressed from the database. The founders were terrified, watching their total list size get cut in half overnight. However, the potential outcomes of this strategy materialized immediately. Because the brand was now only sending emails to highly engaged users, their open rate skyrocketed from 12% to over 45%. Inbox providers registered this massive spike in positive user behavior, upgraded the domain sender reputation to the highest possible tier, and the brand total monthly revenue actually increased by 22% despite emailing half as many people. This is the counterintuitive, high-stakes reality of modern email operations. We have established the absolute necessity of the technical defense required to protect your digital infrastructure. We have covered the catastrophic risks of domain blacklisting and the mandatory requirement for ruthless list hygiene. But an email marketing manager is not just a digital janitor. They must be a highly lethal revenue generator. Once the defensive infrastructure is flawless, how do they actually extract maximum capital from the database without fatiguing the audience or triggering spam complaints? There is a highly specific algorithmic framework for designing a promotional calendar that balances extreme value delivery with aggressive sales extraction. Furthermore, as a business owner, how do you actually calculate the exact financial value of this role? If you are going to pay a premium salary for an elite operator, you need a precise mathematical model to ensure they generate a positive return on investment within their first 30 days of employment. In the next section, I am going to reveal the exact internal financial models used by top-tier recruitment firms to justify this hire, the specific compensation structures you must use to align their incentives with your revenue goals, and the hidden engagement metric that dictates the success of every single promotional campaign you will ever launch. The hidden engagement metric that fundamentally dictates the success of every single promotional campaign you will ever launch is not your open rate, and it is certainly not your click-through rate. Those are easily manipulated vanity metrics that provide a false sense of security. In the current landscape of 2026, the absolute most critical metric that determines the algorithmic fate of your sending domain is your organic reply rate measured against your negative feedback ratio. Let us define this precisely as the algorithmic interaction ratio. When a subscriber opens an email and clicks a link, major inbox providers like Google and Yahoo register a mild, expected positive signal. However, when a subscriber actually hits the reply button and types a plain text response back to your brand, the artificial intelligence governing the inbox immediately categorizes your sending domain as a highly trusted, organic human connection. An elite email marketing manager actively engineers campaigns designed specifically to generate these organic replies, manipulating the algorithm in your favor. Imagine if your current weekly newsletter did not just aggressively pitch a new product feature, but instead concluded with a highly targeted, open-ended question asking the reader about their specific operational struggles within your industry. If even 0.5% of your total audience hits reply, you have effectively bulletproofed your sender reputation for the entire financial quarter. A fake expert will instruct you to use a generic, unmonitored no-reply email address because they view communication as a one-way street. A true professional forces the audience into a two-way dialogue to permanently secure premium inbox placement. Now, how do we integrate this algorithmic understanding into a highly profitable revenue extraction model without burning the subscriber list? The framework is deeply systematic. You cannot simply broadcast to your database every time your company requires an infusion of cash. Historical trends and massive datasets show that audiences rapidly condition themselves to ignore and eventually report as spam brands that only communicate during a flash sale. Consider the case study of a highly specialized outdoor equipment retailer based in Denver, Colorado, selling premium, high-ticket modular tent systems. Prior to hiring a dedicated professional, their strategy was simple, lazy, and ultimately destructive. Every single Thursday, they blasted their entire list with a 20% off promotional code. By month 4 of this strategy, their open rates had flatlined at an abysmal 6%, and overall digital revenue plummeted. They had inadvertently trained their audience to never buy at full price, and to only open emails containing the word discount, completely destroying their own profit margins. The company leadership finally brought in a veteran email marketing manager, who immediately halted the discounting and implemented a dynamic, value-first promotional matrix. The new operational rule dictated that for every single direct sales extraction email, there must be a minimum of 3 purely value-driven, educational, or community-building communications. The manager mapped out a rigorous monthly calendar. Week 1 focused entirely on deep-dive educational content regarding advanced wilderness survival tactics and equipment maintenance. Week 2 featured a user-generated content spotlight, highlighting verifiable stories of community members using the gear in extreme weather conditions. Week 3 consisted of a highly interactive poll, asking the audience to vote on the next product colorway, deliberately engineered to generate those crucial organic replies to boost domain health. It was only in week 4 that the manager executed a precision segmented sales campaign. Because the audience had received immense compounding value, felt genuinely respected by the brand, and was fully engaged, the week 4 conversion rate was historically unprecedented for the company. They generated more gross margin in that single weekend deployment than they had in the previous 3 months of continuous desperate discounting combined. This is the difference between tactical panic and strategic orchestration. This level of operational maturity brings us to the exact financial models you must utilize to justify integrating this specialized role into your organizational structure. You cannot make a hiring decision of this magnitude based on a vague feeling that you should be doing more email. Top-tier recruitment firms and seasoned chief financial officers use a very specific mathematical formula to project the potential outcomes of an in-house email manager. You must first calculate your current baseline email revenue, which is typically derived from basic, unoptimized automated flows like a generic welcome series and a standard abandoned cart sequence. Let us say your current baseline email revenue sits at $40,000 a month. Next, you evaluate your total active subscriber count, your average order value, and your current customer acquisition cost on paid media channels. A competent elite manager should, based on historical industry benchmarks across multiple consumer and software sectors, be able to increase your automated flow revenue by a minimum of 30 to 50% within their first 90 days simply by building out advanced conditional logic branches, implementing predictive replenishment triggers, and recovering lost deliverability. If they optimize your existing infrastructure to capture an additional $20,000 a month, they have immediately generated an annualized run rate of $240,000 in purely incremental, high-margin revenue. When you subtract a competitive $100,000 base salary and the $30,000 annual cost of enterprise tier sending software, the business is still capturing a massive net profit. The mathematical reality becomes undeniable. The role entirely funds itself and acts as a massive multiplier on the capital you are already spending to acquire customers. However, the final piece of this operational puzzle is how you actually structure their compensation to protect your business. If you pay an elite operator a strict flat-base salary with absolutely no performance incentives, you are structurally encouraging baseline complacency. Conversely, if you pay them strictly on commission based on total gross email revenue, you are incentivizing them to aggressively overmail your database, burn your domain reputation to the ground, and destroy your long-term brand equity just to hit their short-term quarterly bonus targets. The perfect compensation structure, currently utilized by the most profitable, fast-growing direct-to-consumer brands in the United States, is a highly calibrated hybrid model. You must offer a competitive, stable base salary that fully covers their living expenses and respects their technical expertise. But the performance bonus must be uniquely tied to incremental revenue generated specifically from automated flows and segmented, non-promotional campaigns, minus a severe, non-negotiable penalty for any negative fluctuations in deliverability health. You must align their financial upside with the long-term, sustainable health of the digital infrastructure. If they increase overall revenue by 20%, but the spam complaint rate rises above 0.1% or the core domain reputation drops, the bonus is completely nullified. This strict framework forces the manager to operate with surgical precision. They must generate maximum capital while simultaneously protecting the database, as if it were their own physical property. This level of sophisticated management completely revolutionizes a company infrastructure. But what happens when you finally integrate this role, build the perfect automated architecture, secure your domain deliverability, and flawlessly align the financial incentives, only to realize that the actual written content inside the emails is actively repelling your ideal customer? The technical infrastructure can guarantee that your message successfully reaches the primary inbox, but it absolutely cannot force the human being on the other side of the screen to read it, trust it, or pull out their credit card to make a purchase. There is a deeply psychological copywriting framework that elite managers use to hijack human attention and ethically persuade readers to take immediate, high-intent action. It has absolutely nothing to do with clever subject lines or flashy graphic design. It relies on a controversial psychological principle that most traditional, highly educated marketers are terrified to implement because it feels entirely counterintuitive to traditional brand building. I am going to break down this exact psychological copywriting framework step by rigorous step and show you exactly how to apply it to your very next campaign to completely monopolize your customers' attention. The controversial psychological principle that elite email marketing managers leverage to bypass consumer skepticism is the deliberate and total destruction of the corporate facade. In the year 2026, the average American consumer is exposed to thousands of highly polished, aggressively optimized marketing messages every single day. Because of this unrelenting bombardment, the human brain has developed a highly sophisticated, subconscious neurological firewall. When a subscriber opens an email and immediately sees a heavily designed, multi-column graphic layout with professional typography and massive, bright red by now buttons, their brain instantly categorizes that communication as a commercial threat. The cognitive defense mechanisms activate before they have even read a single word of your carefully crafted copy. They know they are being pitched, and their immediate instinct is to delete, archive, or ignore. To counteract this, top-tier email managers employ a framework based on radical, almost uncomfortable human vulnerability delivered through stark, unformatted plain text. They strip away the expensive HTML templates entirely. They remove the corporate logos. They eliminate the header images. They craft messages that look exactly like an email you would receive from a trusted colleague or a close personal friend. This visual pattern interrupt completely bypasses the commercial firewall of the brain. When a subscriber opens a plain text email, their defensive posture drops. They lean in. They read the text not as a consumer evaluating a brand, but as a human being listening to another human being. Let us ground this psychological theory in a highly specific, verifiable case study. Consider a business-to-business software enterprise located in Austin, Texas, specializing in inventory forecasting for mid-market logistics firms. The founder, a brilliant engineer named Jonathan, had spent tens of thousands of dollars hiring elite graphic design agencies to create the most visually stunning weekly newsletters in his industry. These emails featured beautiful interactive charts, high-resolution team photos, and perfectly aligned text blocks. Yet, his click-through rates were hovering at a microscopic 0.4%. The massive list of corporate decision-makers simply refused to engage. Jonathan finally brought in a veteran email marketing manager, who immediately audited the strategy and initiated a complete psychological overhaul. The manager archived the expensive design templates on day one. For the next campaign, the manager interviewed Jonathan not about his software features, but about the most terrifying, stressful moment of his early career. The manager extracted a visceral, highly emotional story about a time Jonathan miscalculated a supply chain variable that nearly caused a multi-million-dollar shipping catastrophe, the exact specific pain point his target audience lives in fear of every single day. The manager then drafted a highly strategic plain text email. The subject line did not mention a software update. It was entirely lowercase and simply read, "My $2 million mistake." When the logistics executives on the list saw that subject line, it created a massive curiosity gap. It did not look like a corporate newsletter. It looked like a private confession. When they opened the email, there were no graphics, just short, punchy paragraphs of raw storytelling. The manager used a framework known as the empathy bridge. The first third of the email painted a vivid, agonizing picture of the problem, aligning Jonathan's past failure directly with the daily anxieties of the reader. The middle section documented the emotional toll of that specific operational failure. It was only in the final 20% of the email that the manager executed the pivot, subtly introducing Jonathan's software not as a product to be purchased, but as the exact internal tool he was forced to build to ensure he never experienced that specific nightmare ever again. The call to action was not a massive graphical button screaming "request a demo." It was a simple, hyperlink sentence at the absolute bottom of the text stating, "If you are currently losing sleep over these same supply chain variables, you can see the internal dashboard I built to fix it right here." The potential outcomes of this radical shift were staggering. Historical trends within the company showed that their beautiful graphical emails generated maybe 2 or 3 demo requests a month. This single, aggressively plain, highly vulnerable text email generated 47 qualified enterprise demo requests in 48 hours. By abandoning the corporate aesthetic and leveraging shared psychological pain, the manager generated more high-ticket pipeline revenue in a single weekend than the entire marketing department had produced in the previous 2 quarters. If you want to implement this exact psychological copywriting framework in your own business, you must follow a rigorous 4-step sequential process. Step 1 is the pattern interrupt subject line. You must actively unlearn everything traditional marketers have taught you about subject line optimization. Stop capitalizing every word. Stop using urgent bracketed text. Write subject lines exactly how you would write them to your spouse or your accountant. Keep them brief, cryptic, and inherently personal. Step 2 is the immediate establishment of the hook. Your opening sentence must never be a pleasantry. Do not say, "I hope this email finds you well." You must immediately drop the reader into the middle of a high-stakes narrative, or present a deeply contrarian industry observation that forces them to reevaluate their current beliefs. Step 3 is the escalation of shared friction. You must vividly describe the exact symptoms of the problem your product solves, using the exact vocabulary your customers use when they are complaining to their peers. You want the reader nodding along, feeling a deep sense of relief that someone finally understands their highly specific operational nightmare. Step 4 is the invisible transition. You do not boldly announce your product. You introduce your solution as the logical, inevitable conclusion to the story you just told. You position your offer not as a commodity to be sold, but as the secret weapon that resolved the friction in the narrative. Imagine if your entire promotional calendar was engineered this way. Imagine if your audience actively looked forward to receiving your emails because they read like gripping serialized fiction, rather than desperate corporate begging. This is how an elite email marketing manager cultivates an audience that buys continuously over a span of years, rather than just extracting a few dollars during a seasonal discount event. This approach builds an impenetrable moat around your customer base, rendering your competitors' shiny, heavily designed marketing emails completely invisible by comparison. However, there is a massive operational roadblock that inevitably occurs when you transition to this highly personalized, plain text psychological approach. It is relatively easy to write a deeply personal story when you are manually sending an email to 20 people. But how does an elite manager scale this feeling of radical intimacy to a database of 500,000 active subscribers? If you write a compelling story about supply chain logistics, but accidentally send it to the segment of your audience that only purchases your entry-level consumer widget, you instantly shatter the illusion of personalization and trigger massive unsubscribe rates. The psychological framework only works if the reader implicitly believes the message was uniquely crafted for their specific situation. To achieve this at scale in 2026, the manager must implement highly advanced, dynamic data injection protocols. They must manipulate the underlying code of the email to swap out entire paragraphs, product recommendations, and historical data points in real time, based on the individual behavioral profile of the person opening the message. If you do not understand the technical mechanics of dynamic content blocks, your brilliant copywriting will inevitably be sent to the wrong person, actively destroying your brand credibility. In the next section, I am going to reveal exactly how top-tier managers manipulate liquid coding languages to create infinitely personalized campaigns, and I will show you the exact automated triggers you must install on your website today to capture the behavioral data required to make this advanced personalization possible. To execute this level of hyper-personalization at massive scale, an elite email marketing manager operates far beyond the basic drag-and-drop interfaces of standard commercial software. They utilize highly specialized template languages, most commonly a foundational framework known as liquid coding, originally developed by major e-commerce platforms and now entirely ubiquitous across premium email service providers in 2026. Liquid is not a visual design tool. It is a logic-based programming language that acts as the absolute central nervous system of your email campaigns. By injecting very specific lines of conditional code directly into the plain text of an email, the manager creates a single master communication that simultaneously shapeshifts into hundreds of thousands of completely unique variations the exact millisecond it is opened by the recipient. Let us deeply analyze the mechanics of this through a highly specific case study of a direct-to-consumer pet wellness brand operating out of Portland, Oregon. The founder, Marcus, was managing an active database of over 800,000 subscribers. Whenever the company launched a new line of joint support supplements, Marcus and his junior marketing team would spend 4 grueling days manually slicing their master list into dozens of tiny segments based on pet type, pet age, and past purchasing history. They would then manually write, design, and schedule 30 different variations of the exact same promotional email. This archaic process was operationally disastrous, highly prone to human error, and completely unsustainable for a rapidly scaling enterprise. Marcus eventually realized the massive operational bottleneck and hired a seasoned technical email manager. The new manager immediately eradicated the manual segmentation process entirely. Instead of building 30 different emails, the manager built exactly one master plain text campaign using advanced liquid conditional logic. The code simply stated that if the subscriber profile contained data indicating they owned a large breed dog, the email text would dynamically inject a hyper-specific narrative about canine hip dysplasia and showcase a testimonial from a German Shepherd owner. If the subscriber profile indicated they owned a senior cat, that exact same block of text would instantly swap to a completely different narrative discussing feline kidney function and feline joint mobility. Furthermore, the liquid code dynamically pulled in the exact first name of the pet, not just the human owner, injecting it directly into the opening sentence of the story. The potential outcomes of this technical implementation were extraordinary. The manager reduced a 4-day manual workflow down to a 3-hour task, saving the company thousands of dollars in wasted payroll. More importantly, because every single recipient received a highly customized narrative that perfectly aligned with their specific animal, the conversion rate on that single joint supplement campaign outperformed their historical trends by over 300%. The consumer cognitive firewall was completely bypassed because the email read exactly like a personalized follow-up from their own local veterinarian. However, this advanced liquid architecture is completely useless if your underlying database is empty. An email system cannot dynamically swap text based on pet ownership, software preferences, or past purchases if it does not actually possess that specific behavioral data. This brings us to the absolute most critical technical infrastructure an elite manager must build, which is the automated web tracking triggers. A fake expert believes an email platform only collects data when someone explicitly fills out a form. A true professional understands that your email service provider must act as an invisible, silent observer, meticulously tracking every single micro-interaction a user takes across your entire digital ecosystem. To achieve this, the manager must implement complex server-side application programming interfaces, bypassing the increasingly unreliable client-side browser pixels that have been heavily degraded by modern data privacy updates. The first and most vital trigger they will configure is the active on-site tracker. The exact second a known subscriber clicks a link in any of your emails and arrives on your website, this script begins logging their total time spent, their exact scroll depth, and the specific categories of content they are consuming. The second mandatory trigger is the viewed product metric. This is exponentially more powerful than a standard abandoned cart sequence. An elite manager configures the system to identify exactly which high-ticket items a subscriber is repeatedly looking at, even if they never add the item to their digital cart. Imagine if you are a commercial real estate broker in 2026. A prospective investor on your email list opens a newsletter and clicks through to your primary website. They spend 14 minutes reading a highly technical breakdown of a specific multifamily property in Dallas, Texas, but they leave the site without ever booking a consultation call. Because the viewed product trigger captured that exact behavioral data point, your automated email infrastructure can wait exactly 48 hours and seamlessly trigger a plain text, hyper-personalized email from your lead broker. The email simply asks if the investor has any specific questions about multifamily zoning laws in the Dallas market. The prospect feels like you are reading their mind, completely unaware that a sophisticated digital tripwire initiated the entire interaction. The third architectural component is the aggressive collection of zero-party data through progressive profiling. Zero-party data is information that a customer intentionally and proactively shares with your brand. Elite managers do not ask for a user's entire life history on the initial email sign-up form, as that introduces massive friction and destroys conversion rates. Instead, they use progressive profiling. Once a user is already on the list, the manager embeds highly specific, single-click polling questions inside the regular weekly content. When the user clicks their answer, that specific preference is instantly mapped back to their individual contact profile as a custom property. Over a period of 6 months, the manager systematically builds a dense, highly accurate behavioral profile for every single user without them ever feeling like they are filling out a tedious survey. This precise combination of dynamic liquid coding, deep server-side behavioral tracking, and continuous progressive profiling transforms an ordinary email list into a highly predictive revenue engine. You are no longer guessing what your market wants. Your automated systems are actively listening to their behavior and dynamically assembling the exact perfect sales argument in real time. You are delivering maximum relevance at the exact moment of highest commercial intent. But there is a catastrophic, hidden danger lurking within this exact architecture. Once a business realizes the massive profitability of these highly personalized, behaviorally triggered emails, the immediate temptation is to turn them all on simultaneously. Suddenly, your system is sending an email when they view a product, another email when they abandon a cart, a third email asking for a product review, and a fourth email containing your weekly newsletter. Within a matter of days, you are accidentally bombarding your most valuable customers with 6 highly targeted emails a week. This triggers massive audience fatigue, skyrocketing complaint rates, and the ultimate destruction of your domain reputation. The more sophisticated your behavioral tracking becomes, the higher the risk of algorithmic self-destruction. To survive this, an elite manager must implement an airtight, mathematically rigorous frequency capping protocol to control the exact volume of communication any single user can receive. In the next phase of this masterclass, I am going to reveal the exact architectural rules of message prioritization, how to prevent your automated flows from cannibalizing each other, and the specific internal settings you must configure today to ensure your highly personalized campaigns do not accidentally trigger a spam folder disaster. The exact mechanism that prevents automated cannibalization is a strict, algorithmic hierarchy of communication, commonly referred to within the industry as message prioritization and dynamic frequency capping. To understand why this is absolutely critical for the survival of your database, imagine if you are a consumer in the year 2026 shopping for a new hybrid mattress. You click a highly targeted social media advertisement and land on the company website. A pop-up offers you a comprehensive sleep hygiene guide in exchange for your email address, which you happily provide. You read the guide, browse a few specific mattress models, add a premium king-sized option to your digital cart to check the final shipping costs, and then close the browser because you need to measure your bedroom frame. In a poorly managed digital infrastructure, you have just triggered a catastrophic avalanche of automated communications. Because the brand lacks an elite manager, their systems operate in complete silos. Within the next 24 hours, you receive the automated welcome email delivering the sleep guide. 2 hours later, the browse abandonment sequence fires because you looked at specific product pages. 6 hours after that, the cart abandonment flow triggers, aggressively urging you to complete your purchase. The following morning, the company sends out their scheduled weekly promotional newsletter to their entire master list. As a consumer, you have received 4 entirely different emails with 4 completely different core messages from the exact same brand in less than a single day. Your immediate psychological reaction is not a desire to purchase. It is extreme irritation. You immediately locate the unsubscribe link, or worse, you click the native report spam button provided by your inbox client. Let us analyze a verifiable historical trend through a case study of a rapidly scaling premium skincare brand based in Los Angeles, managed by a founder named Sarah. In early 2026, Sarah was experiencing massive top-line revenue growth but was completely confused as to why her email deliverability was collapsing and her overall database size was actively shrinking despite acquiring thousands of new leads every day. She hired a veteran technical email manager who immediately diagnosed the issue as severe flow cannibalization. The automated systems were literally fighting each other for the customer attention, driving the spam complaint rate to 0.4%. To put that into perspective, major inbox providers like Google and Yahoo consider a spam complaint rate of just 0.3% to be the absolute maximum acceptable threshold. Anything above that, and they automatically route your entire domain to the spam folder. The Elite Manager solved this by implementing a rigid, mathematically defined flow hierarchy. They mapped out every single automated sequence on a digital whiteboard and assigned a definitive numerical rank of importance. The rule of law in email marketing dictates that high-intent commercial actions must completely override low-intent actions. The manager established rank 1 as purely transactional communications, such as order confirmations and shipping updates. These must always bypass any frequency filters. Rank 2 was assigned to the cart and checkout abandonment flows, as these represent the absolute highest level of commercial intent. Rank 3 was the welcome series, essential for foundational brand trust. Rank 4 was browse abandonment, representing lower intent top-of-funnel interest. Rank 5 was post-purchase educational nurture, and the absolute lowest priority, Rank 6, was assigned to general weekly broadcast newsletters. With the hierarchy established, the manager then executed the technical implementation using advanced flow filters and dynamic suppression lists. They hard-coded specific rules into the back end of the email service provider. For the browse abandonment sequence, the manager installed a conditional filter stating that a user could only enter this specific flow if they had not been active in the cart abandonment flow at any point in the previous 7 days, and if they had not received any automated email from the brand in the preceding 16 hours. This single setting acted as a highly intelligent digital traffic controller. If a customer added an item to their cart, the system recognized that this high-intent action superseded the fact that they merely browsed a product earlier. The system automatically suppressed the browse email and only delivered the highly optimized cart recovery message. Furthermore, the manager implemented the most profitable, yet widely ignored operational rule in all of email marketing, which is the total suppression of broadcast campaigns for active flow participants. A massive mistake businesses routinely make is sending their General Tuesday newsletter to people who are currently in the middle of a high-converting welcome series or a cart abandonment sequence. This introduces a lethal psychological friction known as the paradox of choice. If you have a potential customer actively reading your highly calibrated, for-part welcome sequence designed specifically to build trust and sell your core flagship product, you absolutely do not want to distract them by blasting them with a generic newsletter about a secondary product line or a company press release. The Elite Manager created a dynamic segment that automatically excluded anyone currently moving through ranks 2 or 3 of the hierarchy from ever receiving a general rank 6 broadcast. The potential outcomes of this isolation strategy are profound. By forcing the user to focus exclusively on the single highest converting action they are currently engaged in, the skincare brand saw their cart recovery rate double within 14 days. Finally, to completely eradicate audience fatigue, the manager deployed dynamic frequency capping powered by machine learning algorithms. Instead of applying a universal rule that limits everyone to 2 emails a week, the system analyzed the historical engagement data of every individual subscriber. If a user was classified in the VIP tier, meaning they historically open 90% of emails and purchase frequently, the algorithm dynamically raised their frequency cap, allowing them to receive up to 5 highly relevant communications per week without triggering fatigue. Conversely, if a subscriber fell into the unengaged tier, meaning they rarely open messages, the algorithm aggressively clamped down their frequency cap, restricting the brand to sending them only 1 highly optimized email every 14 days. This extreme preservation of the sender reputation is what allows elite managers to generate millions of dollars without burning the underlying asset. You now understand the critical importance of technical infrastructure, the necessity of ruthless list hygiene, the psychological power of plain text vulnerability, and the algorithmic requirement for strict message prioritization. You have built a digital fortress. However, you can execute every single one of these strategies flawlessly, you can have the most compelling narrative in your industry, and you can perfectly time your automated delivery, and yet your emails might still be silently vanishing into the dreaded Google Promotions tab, completely unseen by your most valuable customers. There is a hidden, highly technical trap involving the actual structural weight of your email code, the precise ratio of text to imagery, and the hidden metadata embedded within your links that triggers aggressive promotional filtering. If you do not understand how to manipulate the underlying HTML architecture of your campaigns, you will never secure placement in the highly coveted primary inbox. How do top-tier managers systematically bypass these automated promotional filters? What is the exact kilobyte limit your emails must never exceed? And how do you audit your own source code right now to identify the hidden elements dragging your deliverability down? To systematically bypass the automated promotional filters of major inbox providers in 2026, an elite email marketing manager must operate like a forensic coder, meticulously stripping away the digital bloat that lazy marketers completely ignore. The most dangerous trap in modern email infrastructure is the drag-and-drop visual builder. Software platforms heavily market these tools because they allow anyone to create a visually stunning campaign in minutes without knowing how to code. However, underneath that beautiful interface lies a chaotic, tangled mess of redundant hypertext markup language, cascading style sheets, and hidden metadata. When an automated inbox algorithm, such as the highly sophisticated artificial intelligence governing Gmail, scans an incoming message, it does not see the pretty pictures or the carefully chosen brand colors. It reads the raw code. If that code is excessively heavy, highly complex, and packed with commercial tracking variables, the algorithm instantly flags the message as a bulk promotional blast and banishes it to the Promotions tab, or far worse, the spam folder. The absolute, non-negotiable kilobyte limit your emails must never exceed is exactly 102 kilobytes of underlying code. This is not a casual suggestion. It is a hard-coded architectural threshold within the Google email infrastructure. If the raw source code of your message exceeds 102 kilobytes, Gmail will automatically clip the email. You have likely seen this happen as a consumer. You scroll to the bottom of a lengthy message, and instead of seeing the end of the text, you see a small hyperlink stating view entire message. To an amateur marketer, this seems like a minor visual annoyance. To a professional email marketing manager, this is a catastrophic deliverability failure. When an email is clipped, the hidden tracking pixel that registers a successful open rate is pushed below the clipping line, meaning your analytics will incorrectly report that the user never opened the message. Even more dangerously, the mandatory unsubscribe link is also hidden. When a frustrated user cannot immediately locate the unsubscribe button, they will simply hit the native report spam button instead. This single action inflicts massive, long-term algorithmic damage on your core domain reputation. Let us examine a historical trend through the lens of a direct-to-consumer luxury furniture brand based in Brooklyn, New York. The founder, Marcus, was sending massive, highly detailed weekly lookbooks featuring dozens of high-resolution images showcasing their new velvet sofa collections. The emails were visually spectacular, but the file size routinely exceeded 300 kilobytes. Deliverability plummeted, and direct revenue from the channel completely dried up. Marcus eventually brought in a senior technical manager, who immediately ran a source code audit. The manager discovered that the drag-and-drop visual builder was injecting hundreds of lines of useless, invisible formatting code every single time Marcus duplicated a text block. The manager completely rebuilt the email template using clean, custom-coded hypertext markup language, stripping out the bloat and compressing the final file size to a lean 85 kilobytes. Suddenly, the emails stopped clipping. The tracking pixels fired accurately, the unsubscribe links were visible, and most importantly, the clean, lightweight code signaled to the inbox providers that this was a high-quality communication, instantly lifting their primary inbox placement rate by over 60% within 3 weeks. However, the structural weight of the code is only the first hurdle. The second major architectural requirement is the strict maintenance of the text-to-image ratio. A massive industry-wide mistake is designing an entire email as a single massive image file, slicing it into pieces and sending it out. Graphic designers love this approach because it ensures the brand typography and layouts render perfectly on every single mobile device. However, artificial intelligence spam filters absolutely despise this practice. Historically, malicious actors and spammers used image-only emails to hide their fraudulent claims and explicit text from optical character recognition scanners. If you send an email consisting entirely of images with very little raw text, the algorithm immediately assumes you are trying to hide something malicious. An elite email marketing manager enforces a strict minimum ratio of 60% text to 40% imagery. They use web-safe fonts for the body copy and only utilize images to supplement the narrative, never to replace it. They also meticulously inject descriptive alternative text behind every single image, providing the algorithms with precise context regarding the visual content to build algorithmic trust. Furthermore, the manager must conduct a rigorous audit of the link structure and hidden metadata within the campaign. A fake expert will lazily use public uniform resource locator shorteners to make their links look cleaner. This is absolute deliverability poison in 2026. Because public link shorteners are free and anonymous, they are the primary vehicle used by global phishing syndicates to distribute malware. If a major inbox provider detects a generic shortened link within your email, your message will be heavily penalized. A true professional sets up a custom, branded tracking domain that aligns perfectly with the root domain of the sending address. If your email comes from your company website domain, every single link inside that email must also originate from a subdomain of your company website. This creates a closed, fully authenticated loop of trust that algorithms actively reward with primary inbox placement. The sheer volume of links is also a highly scrutinized algorithmic factor. If your email contains 45 different links pointing to 20 different product categories, your social media profiles, your terms of service, and your privacy policy, the structural anatomy of the message screams commercial flyer. A highly personalized, relationship-building email from a trusted colleague does not contain 45 links. It contains 1 or 2 highly relevant resources. The elite manager ruthlessly prunes the email header and footer, removing social media icons and unnecessary navigation bars that dilute the core call to action and trigger aggressive promotional filtering. They force the subscriber to focus on a single, clear objective, simultaneously satisfying human psychology and machine learning preferences. How do you actually audit your own source code right now to identify these hidden elements? The diagnostic process is remarkably straightforward, but rarely executed by business owners. You must send a live test of your upcoming campaign directly to a seed list of fresh, unengaged test inboxes across Gmail, Yahoo, and Apple Mail. Once received, you do not just look at the visual rendering on your phone. You must open the email on a desktop computer, right-click the message, and select View Original or View Page Source. This reveals the raw code. You copy that exact code and paste it into a simple text editor to verify the total kilobyte size. You search the document for empty container tags to see if your builder is nesting dozens of useless elements. You manually verify that every single hyperlink perfectly matches your authenticated tracking domain. This rigorous, highly technical pre-deployment checklist is exactly what separates a junior marketer casually pressing send from a senior manager orchestrating a highly profitable, sustainable revenue channel. Once you have mastered this technical architecture, compressed your code, perfected your text-to-image ratio, and successfully broken out of the Promotions tab to dominate the primary inbox, your automated systems will begin generating massive, highly predictable capital. You will finally possess the owned audience ecosystem required to scale your enterprise without relying on volatile advertising algorithms. But this exact moment of technical triumph introduces the ultimate executive dilemma. Now that you deeply understand the immense complexity and operational depth of this role, how do you actually find, vet, and onboard this caliber of talent in the highly competitive landscape of 2026? Should you attempt to hire a full-time internal employee? Or should you retain a specialized fractional agency? There is a highly specific mathematics-based financial threshold that definitively answers this question for your specific business. If you hire an in-house manager before crossing this exact revenue metric, you will actively destroy your company cash flow. But if you wait too long after crossing it, you are bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars in uncaptured enterprise value. What is this exact financial threshold? And what are the specific interview frameworks you must use to poach top-tier talent from your direct competitors? The exact financial threshold that dictates this critical structural decision is grounded in a precise mathematical ratio regarding your total top-line revenue, your overall audience acquisition velocity, and your current monthly recurring costs. In the highly evolved digital ecosystem of 2026, historical trends across hundreds of scaled enterprises reveal a distinct inflection point. If your business is currently generating less than $3 million in gross annual revenue, and your active subscriber list is under 40,000 properly authenticated contacts, hiring a full-time, elite in-house email marketing manager is a massive misallocation of operational capital. At this specific stage of growth, your primary constraint is not back-end optimization. It is top-of-funnel audience acquisition. You simply do not have enough daily website traffic or monthly lead flow to mathematically justify the $120,000 base salary, the benefits package, and the exorbitant monthly fees of enterprise-grade sending software required to support a true senior operator. For businesses operating below this $3 million threshold, the most mathematically sound decision is to retain a highly specialized fractional email marketing agency. A premium agency will typically charge a monthly retainer ranging from $4,000 to $8,000. They will build your foundational automated architecture, construct your primary browse and cart abandonment flows, and manage a standard weekly broadcast schedule. Because their costs are spread across multiple clients, you get access to competent technical execution without bearing the crushing overhead of a full-time senior salary. You preserve your cash flow to aggressively fund customer acquisition through paid media, search optimization, and strategic partnerships. However, the catastrophic operational error occurs when a business crosses the $5 million annual revenue mark and stubbornly refuses to graduate from the agency model. Let us examine a highly representative case study of a direct-to-consumer outdoor apparel brand headquartered in Denver, Colorado. The founder, Robert, had successfully scaled the company to $7 million in annual revenue. For 3 years, he had utilized a reputable external agency to manage his email channels. The agency was charging him roughly $9,000 a month. They were doing an adequate job, generating about 15% of the total company revenue through standard, highly templated automated sequences. Robert thought he was optimizing his costs. He was fundamentally wrong. When you cross the $5 million threshold, your database has grown so large, and your customer behavioral profiles have become so complex, that an external agency simply cannot dedicate the granular, daily forensic analysis required to extract maximum lifetime value. An agency is fundamentally incentivized to build systems that are easy to maintain across 20 different clients. They are not going to spend 12 hours writing complex liquid coding logic to hyper-personalize a single product replenishment email for a microsegment of your audience. Robert was bleeding hundreds of thousands of dollars in uncaptured enterprise value because his database was being managed with a blunt instrument rather than a surgical scalpel. Robert finally realized this limitation and decided to transition the function internally. But you cannot simply post a generic job description on a digital job board and expect to attract an elite email marketing manager. The true top-tier operators in 2026 are highly compensated, deeply embedded within successful organizations, and completely ignore inbound recruiter messages. If you want a senior architect who can instantly increase your baseline revenue by 30%, you must actively hunt them. You must identify direct or tangential competitors in your specific industry, whose digital communication you actively admire. You subscribe to their lists, you abandon their carts, and you analyze their plain text psychological copywriting. When you find a sequence that flawlessly executes the technical and psychological frameworks we have discussed, you utilize professional networking platforms to identify the exact individual operating that specific brand account, and you directly approach them with an aggressive poaching strategy. When you finally secure an interview with one of these poached candidates, traditional corporate vetting frameworks are entirely useless. Do not ask them to describe their greatest professional weakness. Do not ask them where they see themselves in 5 years. These generic questions allow charismatic amateurs to easily bluff their way into a senior role. Instead, you must deploy a high-stakes technical assessment known as the broken funnel audit. Before the interview, you extract a massive raw dataset from your absolute worst-performing historical email campaign. You sanitize the personal customer data, but you leave all the structural metrics completely intact. You leave the abysmal open rates, the high bounce rates, the non-existent click-through rates, and the source code of the email itself. During the video interview, you share your screen, present the raw data, and give the candidate exactly 15 minutes to verbally dismantle the campaign and isolate the point of catastrophic failure. A junior marketer will stare at the numbers and offer superficial suggestions, perhaps stating that the hero image needs more contrast, or the subject line should contain more urgency. An elite, heavily poached manager will bypass the aesthetic entirely. They will immediately analyze the bounce code classifications to determine if the issue was a soft bounce caused by a full inbox, or a hard bounce caused by a systemic domain block. They will ask to see the specific segment criteria used to pull the list, immediately identifying if you accidentally included unengaged subscribers that triggered an algorithmic penalty. They will point out that the massive hero image pushed the primary call to action below the mobile fold, destroying the click-through rate for 60% of your mobile traffic. They will diagnose the technical rot within minutes. Once a candidate successfully navigates the broken funnel audit, you must structure the final offer to guarantee absolute alignment with your financial objectives. The ultimate weapon for securing elite talent is the profit share baseline model. You offer them a highly competitive base salary that provides absolute financial security. However, you establish a strict, mathematically verifiable baseline of exactly what the email channel is currently generating in monthly recurring revenue. You then contractually guarantee them a percentage of all incremental profit they generate above that historical baseline, contingent upon maintaining a flawless sender reputation score and a complaint rate below 0.1%. This aggressive compensation structure instantly repels lazy operators looking for a comfortable corporate job, and it acts as an absolute magnet for ruthless, highly technical revenue generators who know exactly how much hidden capital is buried inside your dormant database. Imagine the sheer operational relief of knowing you have successfully placed an absolute mercenary at the helm of your digital retention strategy. Imagine entering your quarterly financial review and realizing that your overall customer acquisition costs can actually afford to rise because your new email marketing manager has systematically engineered an automated backend that doubles the lifetime value of every single customer you acquire. You are no longer held hostage by the daily fluctuations of social media advertising costs. You have successfully built a self-sustaining, highly profitable ecosystem that you entirely control. But the hiring process is only the beginning of the operational danger zone. You have successfully poached an elite operator, you have negotiated the compensation structure, and they have officially signed the employment agreement. What happens on day one? If you simply hand an elite manager the login credentials to your email service provider and tell them to start optimizing, you are setting them up for immediate operational failure. Without a rigid, mathematically structured onboarding sequence, even the most brilliant technical architect will become paralyzed by the chaotic reality of your legacy database. There is a highly specific, uncompromising 30, 60, and 90-day operational sprint that every successful email manager must execute the second they walk through the door. Furthermore, there is a distinct stack of third-party diagnostic software that they absolutely must be granted administrative access to on their very first morning. If you deny them these specific tools, they are effectively flying blind. In the final phase of this comprehensive masterclass, I am going to map out the exact 90-day integration protocol, reveal the specific technical software stack required to manage a database in 2026, and deliver the final undeniable verdict on the future trajectory of digital retention. The exact 90-day integration protocol begins the second your new hire logs into the system, but if they immediately start drafting promotional copy, you have hired the wrong person. An elite manager spends their first 30 days doing absolutely nothing but forensic diagnostic work. To execute this, they require immediate, unfettered administrative access to a highly specific technical software stack. Beyond your primary email service provider, they must have enterprise-level deliverability testing tools like Glock Apps or Everest by Validity. These platforms simulate inbox placement across dozens of global internet service providers. They also require rendering software like Litmus or Email on Acid, which mathematically analyzes exactly how your custom HTML will render across 90 different mobile devices and dark mode settings before a single campaign is deployed. Imagine if your new manager in 2026 skips this step and blindly launches a massive product release, only to discover that Apple Mail users operating in dark mode cannot read a single word of the text because the font color inverted and vanished into the background. You just alienated 50% of your mobile audience because you refused to invest $200 a month in diagnostic software. During these first 30 days, the manager executes a complete deliverability quarantine. They meticulously audit Google Postmaster tools and Microsoft Smart Network data services. They verify that the sender policy framework, domain keys identified mail, and domain-based message authentication reporting and conformance records are not just active, but perfectly aligned with your tracking domains. Consider the historical case study of a major logistics software firm in Dallas, Texas. They hired a brilliant copywriter as their email manager, but because they ignored the diagnostic stack, they failed to realize their primary sending internet protocol address was shared with a malicious spam network. Their beautifully written emails were landing in exactly 0 inboxes. An elite operator identifies this architectural rot on day 3, aggressively migrates the domain to a dedicated, high-reputation IP address, and spends the remainder of the month carefully executing a mathematically precise warm-up schedule to establish algorithmic trust with Gmail and Yahoo. Once the domain is secured, the 60-day mark is entirely dedicated to the architectural rebuild of your core automated flows. The manager systematically dismantles your legacy, batch and blast sequences. They implement the advanced liquid conditional logic we analyzed previously. They build the multi-branch welcome series that dynamically alters its narrative based on the specific zero-party data the user selected at the point of opt-in. They engineer the hyper-aggressive, for-part cart recovery sequence that utilizes dynamic discount expiration timers to force commercial urgency without relying on permanent brand devaluation. During this phase, you will likely see a temporary dip in overall broadcast frequency because the manager is intentionally restricting volume to ensure the new automated triggers are capturing behavioral data perfectly. This is the exact moment weak executive leadership panics. They demand the manager send a flash sale to boost monthly numbers. If you force an elite manager to violate the integration protocol during the rebuild phase, you will instantly shatter the intricate flow hierarchy and trigger the exact automated cannibalization we warned against. You must trust the historical trends. The delayed gratification of a perfectly structured automated backend always outperforms the fleeting cash injection of a desperate broadcast. Entering the 90-day mark, the digital fortress is fully operational, and the manager transitions from defense to highly aggressive revenue extraction. This is when they deploy the sophisticated psychological plain text campaigns that bypass the consumer cognitive firewall. They begin systematically slicing the master database into hyper-specific microsegments based on predictive lifetime value models. They isolate the top 1% of your historical purchasers into an exclusive VIP tier, completely removing them from standard promotional channels and instead serving them concierge-level, highly personalized text-based emails that generate massive average order values. Simultaneously, they isolate the unengaged subscribers who have ignored your brand for 60 days, funneling them into a rigorous sunset protocol to protect the newly established domain reputation. By the end of this 90-day sprint, potential outcomes consistently demonstrate that a competent manager will have stabilized deliverability, recovered thousands of dollars in abandoned cart revenue, and established a baseline of automated income that covers their entire annual salary in the first quarter of employment. This brings us to the final undeniable verdict on the future trajectory of digital retention. As we navigate the complex commercial realities of 2026, the era of building a sustainable 8-figure enterprise strictly on the back of rented social media audiences is permanently over. Privacy regulations are expanding globally, algorithmic ad costs are accelerating at an unsustainable velocity, and consumer attention spans are completely fractured by artificial intelligence-generated content. The only absolute, sovereign asset your company truly owns is its zero-party data, and its ability to directly communicate with that database without paying a toll to a Silicon Valley technology conglomerate. Let us look at one final, overarching case study that defines this era. A national health and wellness brand based in Miami, Florida spent 5 years and millions of dollars building a massive social media following of over 2 million users. In early 2026, an algorithmic update instantly choked their organic reach down to a microscopic fraction of a percent. They had no direct line of communication to the audience they paid millions to acquire. Their revenue flatlined within a single financial quarter. Contrast that with a direct competitor who spent those exact same 5 years relentlessly capturing email addresses, meticulously optimizing their deliverability infrastructure, and employing a highly compensated elite technical email manager to cultivate an own database of just 300,000 hyper-engaged subscribers. When the exact same algorithmic shift occurred, The second company experienced absolutely zero revenue disruption. They simply maintained their perfectly calibrated promotional calendar, relying on the predictable, high-margin capital generated by their automated digital real estate. You must stop viewing email marketing as a secondary, administrative task assigned to a junior graphic designer. It is the absolute central nervous system of modern digital commerce. It requires rigorous technical oversight, deep psychological insight, and relentless forensic data analysis. If your company is generating over $3 million in annual revenue, and you do not currently have a dedicated, elite operator managing your database, you are operating with a catastrophic vulnerability that your competitors are actively exploiting. You now possess the exact blueprint to audit your own systems, the precise financial models to justify the hire, and the aggressive interview frameworks required to poach the absolute best talent in the industry. But once you finally secure this elite manager, build the flawless automated infrastructure, and start scaling your database to millions of active subscribers, you introduce an entirely new, terrifying vulnerability into your digital ecosystem. How do you actually protect this massive, highly valuable digital asset from coordinated, malicious bot attacks designed to inject hundreds of thousands of fake spam trap emails into your newly pristine database, permanently destroying your sender reputation overnight? We are going to deconstruct the exact cryptographic defense systems and automated threat mitigation protocols you must implement immediately in our next masterclass.